Part 41. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 401. The universe is very vast. In this extremely spacious universe, the distance between planetary systems is very far. The planetary system where Wolf Star was located before is only 6.9 light-years away from the planetary system where Chen Hao is currently located. This is rare in this vast universe. In this vast universe, there is more of a vacuum with nothing. Chen Hao knew this, but the distance of 102 light-years was too far. 102 light-years, that means that even light would have to travel 102 years. Even if Chen Hao uses the warp engine, the time it takes to get from this planetary system to that planetary system will be a very scary value. The information processor told me before that the warp engine channel it built will become more useful as the most powerful beast I have become stronger. I don't know how far the warp engine built by the current information processor can achieve. Thinking about it, Chen Hao asked, how long does it take for the information processor to reach the distance of 102 light-years with the warp speed engine you have built so far? The warp engine I have built so far can reach 4 times the speed of light, and it will take 25.5 years to reach a distance of 102 light-years. 25 years, is too scary. In the blink of an eye, is it 25 years? Chen Hao shook his head and looked at a rogue planet about 12 light-years away from him. This is the second wandering planet that Chen Hao has ever seen. This rogue planet is 12 light-years away from Chen Hao. With the construction time of the current information processor, it will take 3 years to go to this rogue planet. Chen Hao sat up, leaned against the head of the bed, and looked at the scenery outside the window. There is nothing to hesitate about. The beasts that Chen Hao currently owns all have almost endless lifespans. Their cells are composed of nano-elves, and nano-elves can be obtained from the Wolf Star or the Big Bear. As long as the Wolf Star and the Big Bear Star they can't die without exploding. And he now has immortal life. For his endless lifespan, it actually makes no difference whether it is 3 years, 25 years, or hundreds of years. There is nothing to hesitate about. Chen Hao realized that he had a habitual thinking. Sometimes, as time passes, Chen Hao always feels that death is getting closer and closer. Thinking about it, Chen Hao raised his hand, and a mirror appeared on his palm. Chen Hao raised the mirror in his hand and looked at his face in the mirror. Decades have passed now, but this face is still the same as when Chen Hao first arrived in the World of Warcraft Forest, without any change. Chen Hao is already familiar with this face. This face is his face in this life. The self in the previous life is no longer there, already dead. I am immortal now. Things like lifespan have nothing to do with me. Time cannot leave any life on me, nor can it take away my life. In this case, there is no need to hesitate. Chen Hao raised his face and looked through the window at the bright starry sky outside. Looking at the dots of starlight, there were stars in his eyes. I continue to train the beast masters. I want to know how powerful the most powerful beast masters can be. I want to know how far Little Diamond can grow. I want to know how Xiaoying's genetic evolution continues to become stronger. What can she do? How powerful? Chen Hao showed a smile, then do it. Use time and years to meet my expectations. After thinking about it, Chen Hao lay back on the bed. Eyes closed. Tomorrow begins space travel. Soon, in the blink of an eye, it was early morning the next day. Chen Hao's figure appeared outside the universe. In front of Chen Hao is the warp engine channel that has been constructed. Chen Hao has already put away the Divine Realm and the beasts on the Divine Realm star. Through this warp engine channel, we can reach the target set yesterday, the rogue planet 12 light-years away from here. However, as soon as you step into this warp engine passage, 3 years will pass in the blink of an eye. Chen Hao looked at the dark entrance to the warp engine passage in front of him, and stepped into it. His eyes went dark and then brightened. A dark blue planet can be seen in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at the planet in front of him, and then looked around. There was nothing but the dark blue planet. Chen Hao's eyes fell on the dark blue planet in front of him. In other words, I have arrived. Chen Hao's eyes fell on the dark blue planet in front of him again. A transparent blue screen took the initiative to appear in front of Chen Hao. Record the planet's mass in this blue frame. Gaseous planet unnamed. The mass is 29 Earth masses. Seeing the information displayed on the screen, Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. Said to be a gaseous planet, perhaps the planet in front of us should be said to be an ice giant. Due to the low temperature on the surface of this planet, most of the gaseous material on the surface has been frozen. The entire planet looks like a giant iceberg. These ices are not water, but various elements such as methane and hydrogen. The dark blue planet in front of me is my goal this time, the dark blue planet 12 light years away from me. Book. The omnipotent book appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao took out the God Realm Star card from the Universal Book. Transform. The God Realm Star lit up slightly. As the white light lit up, a figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. The 7 colors unique to diamonds lit up, and a slender and petite figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. A ponytail made of pure diamonds was draped behind her. Her eyelashes moved, and she slowly opened her eyes. As her eyelids opened, a pair of diamond-like eyes appeared in front of Chen Hao. Her eyes became conscious, and she raised her face and looked at Chen Hao. The figure of Chen Hao was reflected in those bright eyes. Chen Hao smiled, "Long time no see." The little diamond's eyes shone, "Master." Her voice trembled slightly. Little Diamond has always been calm, but at this moment even her voice is trembling. 3 years. Little Diamond's eyes shone. Chen Hao nodded slightly, with a gentle smile on his face, stretched out his big hand, and stroked Little Diamond's little head. Diamond felt the warmth from Chen Hao's hand, and she slowly closed her eyes. "Don't worry about me, your master is always here," Chen Hao said with a smile. Diamond slowly opened her eyes, raised her face, and looked at Chen Hao. I know the master is always here, but I didn't see him, and I feel a little depressed." Chen Hao smiled, "It's okay, let's do business first." As he said that, Chen Hao looked at the wandering planet. Diamond noticed Chen Hao's gaze, and she also looked over. Chen Hao said, "Swallow it?" Diamond nodded. She moved her body and flew towards the ice giant. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 402. After the little diamond flew over, her body turned into a planet. Looking at the planet in front of him, Chen Hao's eyes had a glimmer. The planet that the little diamond turned into before was a gas planet. Her appearance at that time was light blue, similar to the ice blue planet. After that, Chen Hao asked the little diamond to devour 6 rocky planets. Chen Hao had not seen what the little diamond looked like after devouring the 6 rocky planets. And now, Chen Hao saw it. The little diamond's appearance has changed. The little diamond was originally a rocky planet with a brown-yellow appearance. After she devoured the 2 gas planets, her body turned dark blue, and then slowly changed from dark blue to light blue. And now, after devouring the 6 planets, the color of the little diamond changed from light blue to light yellow. Her size has become larger than before. The mass of the little diamond now is 73 Earths, while the nameless gas planet in front of him has only 29 Earth masses. The volume of the small diamond is very large. Compared with the small diamond, if the small diamond planet is now a basketball, then this nameless gas planet can only be regarded as a ping-pong ball. The huge body of the small diamond planet rotated and slowly approached the gas planet. The blue gas planet, affected by the gravity of the small diamond planet, slowly rotated around the small diamond planet, swallowing the embrace of the small diamond planet while rotating. As it approached, the entire planet began to be torn by tidal forces. Tidal force is the gravity of the planet itself plus the gravity generated by the other planet. As it approached, the gravitational force of the small diamond planet on the planet became stronger and stronger. Slowly, when the tidal force reached the Roche limit, the dark blue gas planet began to disintegrate. After the disintegration, the gas planet turned into countless large and small pieces of ice and entered the small diamond planet, and was swallowed and absorbed by the small diamond, obtaining a part of the small diamond. In front of Chen Hao, the ice fragments of the gas planet rotated around the small diamond and slowly sank into the body of the small diamond. As time went by, all the broken ice merged with the body of Little Diamond. The mass of Little Diamond changed from 73 Earth masses to 100 Earth masses. Originally, Little Diamond had 73 Earth masses, and this gas planet had 29, which added up to more than 100 Earth masses. But because of the loss of mass during the swallowing process, it could only reach 100, and the excess was consumed during the swallowing process. Little Diamond's body glowed white, and her huge body began to shrink. In the blink of an eye, her body turned back to the posture of a girl and appeared in front of Chen Hao. Little Diamond looked at Chen Hao. "Master, I'm done." Hearing this, Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond's naturally bitter face. The information of Little Diamond appeared in the translucent blue screen displayed in front of Chen Hao. Gas giant planet Little Diamond. The mass is 100 Earth masses. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly. Gas giant planet. Finally, after Little Diamond's mass reached 100 Earth masses, it finally evolved from a gas planet to a gas giant planet. So what's next? What's next after the gas giant? What will it be? Chen Hao would be interested to know, and said with a smile, "Thank you for your hard work. Let's go back to the God realm first, and then I'll call you." Upon hearing this, Diamond's eyes shone. "Master, are you leaving again?" Diamond seemed to realize something. The last time Chen Hao left the God realm, he was gone for 3 years, and now Chen Hao is leaving again. Diamond's beautiful diamond eyes shone, and her natural S-shaped eyebrows were slightly raised, looking even more bitter and pitiful. Chen Hao looked at Diamond's expression, and he smiled and said, "Yeah, I want to go to a farther place to have a look." Diamond said with a bitter face, "Obviously not, Master, you are obviously helping me find planets that can be swallowed." "Master." She looked at Chen Hao, her eyes shone with tears. "Master is so hard, looking for planets everywhere, all to provide me with planets that can be swallowed. This is not good at all, Master. I don't have to become powerful, as long as Master can be happy." "Ah." Chen Hao blinked his eyes, and he looked at the tears in Little Diamond's eyes. Chen Hao was a little confused. Little Diamond seemed to have misunderstood. However, it was no wonder that she misunderstood. After all, he had traveled so far, and it would take several years at a time, so he was indeed training her. But was training her his ultimate goal? Obviously, it was not. He did this because he had nothing else to do. What Chen Hao wanted to pursue was actually to train the beast, to watch the beast grow up, and to watch the beast become stronger. This was his pursuit. After the beast became stronger, the ability could be shared, which was equivalent to Chen Hao also having the ability in disguise. At the same time, after the beast became stronger, everything Chen Hao had, whether it was the current star-catching ring or the information processor, would usher in new evolution. What Chen Hao wanted was not just to train Little Diamond, he wanted the pleasure of training the beast and the pleasure of exploring the unknown. However, Little Diamond misunderstood. She thought that Chen Hao's ultimate goal was to train her. Chen Hao looked at the tearful Diamond, he smiled, stretched out his hand, fell on her little face, wiped away the tears from her eyes with his fingers, and said with a smile, "Don't think too much, Master, what I want to do is not just to train you. I am acting for myself, and training you is just one step of what I want to do." Diamond looked at Chen Hao. "Really? Chen Hao smiled, "Why would I lie to you?" Diamond's eyes lit up slightly, "Then master, you must be happy." Chen Hao was stunned, "Haha." Chen Hao laughed. Of course Chen Hao looked at Diamond and smiled, "I must be happy." Diamond's eyebrows flattened a little, she smiled, "That's good, then, Diamond will go back to the God realm first. If the master wants to find me, call me." Hearing this, Chen Hao nodded slightly. "Change," Chen Hao said in his heart. Diamond's body turned into white light and sank into the God realm star card. Chen Hao looked at the God realm star card in his hand and put the card into the card slot of the universal book. He thought for a moment, then flipped through the universal book. "I wonder if the conversion of the yellow wind star has been completed." Gas giant yellow wind star. Conversion progress, 6%. Seeing this, Chen Hao's mouth twitched. Yes, the information processor said before that it would take 50 years to convert this thing, and only 3 years have passed. Never mind, let's go to the next planetary system first. The information processor builds a warp engine channel, and I'm going to the next planetary system. To the planetary system that is 102 light-years away from us. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 403. How far are we from that planetary system now? Chen Hao is now on this wandering planet, which is 12 light-years away from the previous position. How far is it from this wandering planet to the planetary system we saw before? 100 light-years. A mechanical voice sounded in Chen Hao's mind. After all, the location of this wandering planet is not facing the direction of that planetary system, because it is tilted. Although it is closer, it is only 2 light-years closer. Is there still a distance of 100 light-years? Little Diamond is now a gas giant planet. The speed of your warp engine should be improved. What is the speed of the warp engine channel now? The current speed of the warp engine is 6 times the speed of light. A mechanical voice sounded, at the current speed, it will take 16 years to use the warp engine to go to the next planetary system. Hearing this, Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly. It was 4 times the speed of light before. Now that Little Diamond has changed from a gas planet to a gas giant planet, the speed of the warp engine has also increased greatly. It is actually twice the speed of light. Before, Chen Hao chose to devour this wandering planet first and then go to the next planetary system, based on the principle of not wasting. Now Chen Hao realized how wise his choice was. The mass of just a gas planet is enough to double the speed of the warp engine channel. This is too cool. Let's build a warp engine. Chen Hao was in a good mood, and there was a smile on his face. As Chen Hao's voice fell. In front of Chen Hao, countless blue data of 0 and 1 appeared. These blue data condensed in front of Chen Hao and turned into a warp engine channel. This warp engine channel is circular, just like a round mirror standing in the void, and the mirror is dark. Chen Hao stared at the warp engine channel in front of him, and he stepped in. His feet stepped into the mirror and his body entered the channel. The moment he stepped into this channel, Chen Hao only felt a blackness in front of his eyes, and then a light. A dark blue planet appeared in front of Chen Hao. The moment he saw the planet, Chen Hao realized. Another ice giant, Chen Hao muttered. At this time, a 3D projection model of a planetary system appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao's eyes fell on the projection model of the planetary system in front of him. There is a very small celestial body in the middle of this model, and there are a total of 5 planets orbiting it near this celestial body. At the same time, Chen Hao can see a green dot next to the 3rd planet, and that green dot is exactly where Chen Hao is at the moment. Obviously, it's here. This is his destination. Suddenly, Chen Hao realized something strange. Chen Hao had seen 2 planetary systems before, and those two planetary systems were similar to peas, with the star in the middle of the planetary system as the center and arranged at a certain distance. The distance of the first planet is not too far from the distance between the stars. Like the solar system that Chen Hao is most familiar with, the Sun is about 5,800 kilometers away from Mercury, and the Sun is about 108 million kilometers away from Venus. Mercury is almost in the middle of the Sun and Venus. Similar to the other two planetary systems that Chen Hao has visited so far, the distances between stars and planets, and between planets are very average. But this planetary system in front of him is very strange. The distance between the first planet in this planetary system and the middle celestial body is very far. The distance between the first planet and the middle celestial body can almost be integrated into the distance spanned by the following four planets. Strange Chen Hao looked at this strange scene, and there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Suddenly, Chen Hao's sight fell on the celestial body in the middle of this planetary system. At first glance, Chen Hao was slightly startled. Is this star so small? Suddenly, Chen Hao seemed to realize something, and he subconsciously looked around. Star, where is that star? Chen Hao was surprised to find that he could not see the light of the star in this planetary system. Normally, as long as you stay in a planetary system, even if you don't want to know where the star is, there is no way. Because as long as you open your eyes, you can feel the light projected by the star. Feeling the light of the star, you can naturally know the position of the star. But Chen Hao can't feel the light of the star now. As long as it is a star, there can be no light. Unless it is not a star. These planets are not orbiting a star? What is that? Chen Hao asked subconsciously. Chen Hao was very curious, and his mind moved, and his body disappeared on the spot. When Chen Hao appeared again, his figure appeared in the middle of the planetary system. This is Xiaoying's teleportation ability. Although Xiaoying's teleportation ability is not as good as the warp engine built by the information processor, in such a short distance, Xiaoying's teleportation ability is still very useful. Chen Hao saw it. He saw the celestial body in the middle of this planetary system. This is, Chen Hao's eyes were full of novelty. In front of Chen Hao, there was a very small celestial body, which was smaller than the current small diamond. It was rotating, and the speed of rotation was very fast. This rotation speed was the fastest celestial body Chen Hao had ever seen. It emits a blue-white light, which is relatively bright, but compared to the scorching and intense light of the sun, the light it emits is much milder and dimmer. No wonder I couldn't feel its light before. This light is too dim compared to the sun. And, this thing is too small. Chen Hao looked at the information displayed on the screen in front of him. White dwarf unknown star. Description: white dwarfs are old stars that evolved from red giants. Mass: 330,000 Earth masses. Volume: 1 Earth volume. Chen Hao's eyes widened when he saw this information. This mass, this is terrifying. Chen Hao looked at the white dwarf in front of him. The white dwarf rotated very fast. When it rotated, the white gaseous thing emitted from it surrounded it. It looked particularly gorgeous. Chen Hao had learned about white dwarfs before. Like the sun, it is actually a star with the scientific name of a yellow dwarf. If a yellow dwarf continues to evolve, it will become a red giant. When it becomes a red giant, its size will grow wildly, and when it grows, it will swallow up nearby planets. Just like the Earth in the solar system, if time goes by, the sun will one day become a red giant, and then the Earth will also be swallowed up. Thinking of this, Chen Hao subconsciously looked at the projection model of the planetary system around him. For a moment, Chen Hao understood. No wonder the first planet in this planetary system is so far away from this white dwarf. It turned out that the planets that were closer to it in the past have been swallowed up. The remaining planets are all far away from it. Chen Hao retracted his sight and looked at the white dwarf in front of him. It is very beautiful, so beautiful that Chen Hao wants to collect it? But unfortunately, Chen Hao's current star-catching ring can only capture planets, and stars are obviously impossible. 330,000 Earth masses. The current small diamonds are only 100 Earth masses. To wait until the small diamonds reach the mass of 330,000 Earths, we can only say when and where. The road ahead is long and arduous. Chen Hao sighed in his heart and opened the Universal Book. He was about to take out the God Realm card and release the small diamonds. Suddenly, Chen Hao's eyes were attracted by one of the cards. This is, Yellow Wind Star. Has the conversion been completed? Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 404. There is a new card lying in the card slot of the Universal Book. Energy Crystal Block Gas Giant Planet Energy Crystal Block. Chen Hao's eyes lit up, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Cool. What's this? This is the energy crystal block of an entire gas giant planet. And it's also Huangfengxing's energy crystal. Huangfeng star has a mass of 320 Earths, which is a bit more mass than Jupiter in the solar system. This is an extremely terrifying mass. However, Chen Hao was a little confused. Information processor, didn't you say before that it would take 50 years to convert Huangfengxing? From then to now, if we plan everything, only more than 20 years have passed. Fully shorten the time. The strongest beast you have, the stronger it is, the stronger the functions I have, and these functions are not just warp engines, came the voice of the information processor. Hearing this, Chen Hao suddenly realized. In other words, when the small diamond evolved into a gas giant planet, the ability of the information processor was also improved. Therefore, the conversion time is shortened. Chen Hao looked at this energy crystal card. So next, who will use this energy crystal block? For small diamonds? Or for Xiaoying? Chen Hao currently wants to focus on training Xiao Diamond and Xiaoying. But this energy crystal block is very important. Should it be given to Little Diamond or Little Shadow? This is a question. Chen Hao thought for a moment and picked up the God Realm card. We will talk about who to give this energy crystal to later. Let Little Diamond swallow all the planets in this planetary system first. Change. As the sound rang out, the God Realm star card lit up slightly. As the white light lit up, the figure of Little Diamond appeared in front of Chen Hao. Little Diamond slowly opened her eyes, revealing her diamond-like eyes. She raised her face and looked at Chen Hao. Eyes facing each other. Little Diamond's eyes lit up slightly, and a joyful smile appeared on his face. Master. This time, she didn't frown or cry when she saw Chen Hao like last time. But his face was full of happiness. Obviously, this was the result of Chen Hao's explanation to Little Diamond last time. Little Diamond smiled and said, "It's been 16 years, how is your master doing outside?" She looked at Chen Hao expectantly. 16 years. For the beast masters, they have lived in the God Realm star for 16 years. Of course, for Chen Hao, it was just a blink of an eye. Chen Hao smiled, "It's okay." Little Diamond nodded slightly, "That's good." As she said that, she looked around, and her eyes fell on the white dwarf. Looking at the white dwarf, Little Diamond's eyes were filled with shock. White dwarf, this is the first time I have seen a real white dwarf. Little Diamond's eyes trembled slightly, full of surprise. Chen Hao's heart was moved. Little Diamond actually knew white dwarf? It seems that her 16 years in the God Realm star were not in vain. Little Diamond looked at Chen Hao, "But master, I can't swallow the white dwarf. Its mass is too great. If I get close, it will be torn apart by it." Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, "I'm not asking you to devour it. The place where you are now is in a planetary system, and there are other planets in this planetary system. What I want you to do is devour other planets. Having said this, Chen Hao paused. You don't have the ability to teleport. I need to ask Xiaoying to come out and help you. Little Diamond was startled, then she smiled and said, Master, no need. Chen Hao was slightly startled and looked at Little Diamond. What? Need not. Diamond took out a card. Change. As Little Diamond finished speaking, the card turned into a giant sphere. This sphere is 10,000 meters in diameter and is made of various unknown metals. The metal sphere is lit up with blue data of 0 and 1. This thing is somewhat similar to the body of an information processor, but its size is much smaller than an information processor that is as big as the moon. What the hell is this? Chen Hao was a little confused. This is a copy of the celestial level calculator created by Ying Long after 10 years of research. I call it Diamond. Little Diamond looked at Chen Hao with a smile on her face. Ying Long and Big Pig together, they researched and understood the algorithm of the warp engine, and they implanted this algorithm into the Diamond. Now the Diamond can also build a warp engine channel. Then let me have the ability to teleport like Xiaoying. When Chen Hao heard this, he put his hand on his chin involuntarily. Chen Hao asked the information processor to give the Beast Masters some scientific information. That information, did the information processor give all its manufacturing methods to the Beast Masters? Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond. How many times the speed of light can the warp engine reach now? Little Diamond said, the current research on warp engines has just started. Although the master gave us a very detailed explanation of the process, it is very difficult to understand and reproduce it. Therefore, currently the warp engine can only achieve 1.5 times the speed of light. Xiaoying's current teleportation ability can reach 1.8 times the speed of light. Hearing this, Chen Hao nodded slightly. Yes, there are 5 planets in this planetary system, and they are all handed over to you. Next, I will release the God Realm Star and take a rest. Little Diamond was startled. Master, do you want to put it here? As she said that, she looked around. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. Well, what's wrong? Little Diamond's naturally splayed eyebrows were raised slightly, and she looked a bit sad as she said, Master, this place is too close to the white dwarf star, and it is easy to be captured by the gravity of the white dwarf star. The master is very strong and will not be affected by gravity, but Big Pig, I guess not. I'm worried that if the owner puts the Big Pig here, the existence of the white dwarf will affect the owner's rest. It would be great if I was strong enough. It would be great if I could swallow the white dwarf. Hearing this, Chen Hao blinked and smiled. It's just a small matter. I will go to the outer reaches of the planetary system to release the God Realm stars in a while. You just go and take care of the planets. Little Diamond's eyes lit up slightly, and she smiled. Well, Master, I'll go first. Chen Hao nodded slightly. Little Diamond's figure disappeared from the spot. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyes glowed. Teleportation. Chen Hao's eyes fell on the diamond next to him. This warp engine technology looked like it was teleporting when used by Little Diamond. This technology. Chen Hao touched the back of his head. A little too sublime. This kind of technology belongs to the technology of an aerospace-level civilization, and it is a technology that can only be developed and researched by a civilization like the Green Civilization. The technology possessed by Chen Hao's previous Earth civilization was far from reaching this level. Even Chen Hao felt a little shocked. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 405. Chen Hao flew to the outskirts of the planetary system and materialized the God Realm Star card in his hand. The God Realm Star appeared in front of Chen Hao. Look at the God Realm Star in front of you. Chen Hao couldn't help but blinked. These guys, what did they do? There is an elongated planetary ring on the periphery of the entire God Realm Star. Natural planetary rings are countless tiny gravels surrounding the planet. Now this planetary ring is made of metal, and it also surrounds the God Realm star. Master, suddenly, a voice came. Chen Hao came back to his senses and looked at the source of the sound. A large humanoid pig figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. He looked at Chen Hao, his pupils trembling slightly, filled with surprise and excitement. He raised his hand, placed it on his chest, and looked at Chen Hao respectfully. Chen Hao smiled, "I haven't seen you for 16 years. Your body has changed a lot." When Dazhu heard this, he subconsciously turned around and looked at the planetary ring. He retracted his gaze and looked at Chen Hao. "That is an environmental transformation ring, made by Dear Girl. This thing can make the environment of the God Realm planet more beautiful, pleasant, suitable for life to survive and live in." "Well." Chen Hao smiled, "I'll go back and take a look first." Big Pig nodded. Chen Hao's figure disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, Chen Hao's figure returned to the palace bedroom in the God Realm. Chen Hao looked at this bedroom and counted the time. It had been 18 years since he left this bedroom. In the past 18 years, the entire bedroom has remained the same as it was 18 years ago, without any difference. "Master," suddenly, a voice came. Chen Hao came back to his senses and saw Xiadi standing at the door. She was looking at Chen Hao, her golden eyes trembling slightly, with a trace of tears in them. Her voice was trembling. Chen Hao looked at Xiadi's expression and smiled, "Long time no see." Xiadi's eyes were shining, and her mouth opened slightly, "Master." She adjusted her mood and showed a gentle smile, "Master, welcome home." Chen Hao smiled, "Well, I'm back." Chen Hao stepped out of the bedroom and came to the hall. He sat on the sofa and looked at Xiadi beside him. "When I came back, I saw the environmental transformation ring outside the God Realm star. I heard Big Pig say that it was a deer. Female researcher. What about you, Xiadi?" Hearing this, Xiadi smiled, "I'm learning to understand the existence of quantum." "Quantum?" Chen Hao looked at Xiadi. "Yes," Xiadi said with a smile, "Master, we have established a communication method using electromagnetic waves before, but the propagation speed of the electromagnetic waves in this communication method is equal to the speed of light, and it will be limited by the speed of light. Quantum is different. Quantum entanglement can make communication speed not limited by the speed of light. In this way, no matter how far away you are, you can contact us instantly." Hearing this, Chen Hao's eyebrows stretched and he smiled and said, "How is your research going?" Xiao Dai said with a smile, "I am currently planning to combine quantum communication methods with the celestial computer developed by Ying Long and Dazhu." "Yes," Chen Hao smiled, "well done." "Master," suddenly, another voice came. Chen Hao came back to his senses. He looked at the door and saw Huo Feng standing at the door. She looked at Chen Hao with excitement on her face. Chen Hao was startled when he saw this guy. The figure of the fire phoenix disappeared from the same place, and when she reappeared, she appeared in front of Chen Hao. She threw her body directly into Chen Hao's arms. Holding Chen Hao's neck with his hands, his little head was buried in Chen Hao's arms. "Master, I miss you so much." Hearing this, Chen Hao blinked. He smiled, stretched out his hand, and stroked Huo Feng's fiery red hair. Chen Hao said with a smile, "If I remember correctly, you have lived for tens of thousands of years and are already an adult. You don't need to be so clingy, right? The fire phoenix is a strange beast. Before the strange beast became a strange beast, it existed in the form of elements between heaven and earth, and was a conscious existence. Calculating the age of the fire phoenix, it is already tens of thousands of years old." When Huo Feng heard this, she raised her face and looked at Chen Hao. She smiled mischievously and said, "I will always be a child by my master's side." Chen Hao smiled, okay, get up." Huo Feng chuckled, sat next to Chen Hao, and looked at Chen Hao. "Master, I haven't seen the master for 18 years. I now have a lot of new understanding of the truth. Satya and I are doing research together. We can create a hydrogen bomb powerful enough to destroy a planet, can also create stable artificial stars. Hearing this, Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly, and he smiled and said, "Very good." Being praised by Chen Hao, Huo Feng was happy, but, Master, after the God Realm Star becomes a card, the only places we can go to are the God Realm Star, VAF Star, Big Bear Star, Endless Star, Ocean Star, and so on. Gemstone. There is life on these planets. The Master once said that life is not easy. Satya and I dare not use a lot of resources on these planets for research. Well, but we can't live without this planetary system. I'm worried that if we continue to study, we won't have enough resources to use in the future. Huo Feng looked at Chen Hao. This? Chen Hao's eyebrows stretched. You know, this is the resource of 5 planets. Although we cannot obtain a large amount of resources for research, a small amount is okay, right? As a result, the 5 planets can no longer satisfy their consumption of resources. Chen Hao thought for a moment, then looked at Huo Feng and smiled. Don't worry, the universe is huge, I'll get 1 or 2 planets for you to play with. Huo Feng smiled, he, Master is the best. Chen Hao was happy. By the way, Huo Feng seemed to remember something. She suddenly said, Yinglong has been studying the fact that matter can be carded. This research has made progress. Master can call Yinglong over. Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly. Chen Hao was actually quite interested in the fact that cards can materialize things. Because, no matter how he thought about it, Chen Hao couldn't think of any means to cardize matter. You know, even planets, the entire planet can be carded. This was beyond Chen Hao's understanding. As a result, has Yinglong figured it out? Chen Hao looked at Xiao Dai beside him. Chen Hao didn't say anything. Xiao Dai nodded slightly, and her figure disappeared on the spot. She already understood what Chen Hao meant, and she went to find Yinglong. Not long after, Xiadi and Yinglong appeared in the hall. When Yinglong saw Chen Hao, his eyes lit up slightly. He seemed a little excited and happy. He suppressed his excitement, put his hands on his chest, bowed slightly to Chen Hao, and said respectfully and politely, Master. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. I heard that you know why matter can be turned into cards. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 406. Yinglong nodded slightly, yes. He said, since you, Master, taught us the truth, I realized that magic elements and fighting spirit are actually different forms of nanorobots. The so-called magic and sword skills are actually various energy forms converted by nano-elves. When I realized this, I wanted to verify it, and the result was just as the truth said. Masudochi is indeed nanorobots. Since that time, I have tried to use truth to understand the various abilities we have. Many abilities can be explained by truth, like magic, teleportation, etc. But, like material card transformation, I haven't been able to find the answer to this. So, I chose to spend time to use the truth, understand and research. Speaking of this, Yinglong paused and looked at Chen Hao. After more than 10 years of research, I used the truth given by my master to come up with my own understanding of this ability. After saying that, Yinglong took out a card from his sleeve and handed it to Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at the card handed over by Yinglong and reached out to take it. This card is very special. You know, the cards Chen Hao currently owns all look the same. Behind the card is a dark vortex pattern, like a black hole, and on the front of the card, there are also lines, and those lines are like the spread of the vortex. but the appearance of the card in front of me is completely different. The entire card is silver white, with the texture and pattern of scales on the back of the card, and the spread of scale patterns on the front. Chen Hao can be sure that this card is not a normal card. There are names on the cards. Material stones. The card picture is exactly the picture of a pebble. This is, Chen Hao looked at Ying Long. Ying Long said, "This is the card I developed." Ah, Chen Hao was stunned. Ying Long said, "Now." He spoke out. When Ying Long's voice fell, the card in Chen Hao's hand lit up slightly. The card disappeared and a stone was suspended in mid-air. Chen Hao looked at the stone in front of him, and then looked at Ying Long. Ying Long said, "Ju." The stones disappeared. Ying Long raised his hand, and there was an extra card in his hand. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyes gained a trace of novelty. Under normal circumstances, if Chen Hao wants to turn something into a card, he needs to use the words change and transformation. But now Ying Long changed the words change and transformation into GUI and present. In other words, Ying Long now indeed has his own set of card-based systems. Chen Hao said, "How did you do it?" Hearing this, Ying Long looked at Chen Hao. "I used the warp engine channel function of the celestial computer and an independent space. The celestial computer can use algorithms to instantly build a warp engine channel at the target's location and teleport the target directly." Ying Long explained, "It is similar to teleportation magic. Master, to your naked eyes, the stones in my hand turned into cards, but in fact I used the warp engine channel of the celestial computer to change the positions of the cards and stones." Hearing this, Chen Hao was startled. "You mean, that the stone is in another place now?" Ying Long nodded. Ying Long said, "This is my understanding of turning matter into cards. Although I am not completely sure, I think, the ability we have to turn matter into cards is actually similar to this method." Hearing this, Chen Hao crossed his arms and looked at Ying Long. "Why do you think so? Why can't matter be turned into cards?" Xiadi and Huofeng on the side looked at Chen Hao. "Master, don't you know this?" Huofeng asked curiously. Chen Hao was startled and looked at Huofeng. How did Chen Hao know this? Before he met the red phosphorus of the green civilization, he didn't even know that the magic element was artificially created. "Of course Master knows," Ying Long suddenly said. Chen Hao looked at Ying Long. Ying Long said, "The knowledge I know now comes from the truth given to me by the Master, and the Master is the God of creation. Everything in the world was created by him, such as the transformation of matter into cards. Master must know." Huofeng blinked. "Then why does the Master keep asking?" Ying Long glanced at Huofeng and said calmly, "This is where the Master's wisdom lies. To the owner, we are like children one after another. Children need praise and praise when they grow. Adults know many things, but there are some things that children still need to explore on their own, so that they can grow on their own. If adults tell children everything, they will lose their desire to explore and grow." Hearing this, Huofeng's eyes lit up, and there was a smile on her face. She looked at Chen Hao, her eyes full of admiration. No wonder the Master has always pretended not to understand anything, but what the Master has done is beyond the understanding of all life. It turns out that the Master is deliberately pretending not to know anything in order to let us grow. He is truly worthy of being a master. Chen Hao didn't know what to say for a while and was silent for a while. Ying Long looked at Chen Hao. "Master, the reason why I have this idea is because when you turn the God Realm Star into a card, the God Realm Star and us in the God Realm Star will be transported to an independent space. It didn't turn into a card." Speaking of this, Ying Long looked at Chen Hao. "I don't know, is my answer correct?" Ying Long looked at Chen Hao's expression with an inquiring and probing look. Chen Hao suddenly understood. Yes. Chen Hao had always thought that turning matter into cards meant that matter really turned into cards. But by looking at the fact that the God Realm Star can continue to operate after being turned into a card, It can be confirmed. Matter is turned into cards, which is actually just a change of space. Chen Hao noticed Yinglong's eyes, and he smiled and said, I think your understanding is quite good. However, I have a small question. Do you have a way to turn a star into a card at present? Chen Hao looked at Yinglong. Yinglong was startled, and he shook his head. This can't be done. The warp engine channel has a mass limit. The larger the mass, the slower the warp engine is built. For things with too much mass, it takes longer to build, and it also requires more calculations. Speaking of this, Yinglong looked at Chen Hao. Let alone the gas giant planet, even if it is the God Realm star transformed by the Big Pig, it will take about 300 years to fit into the body of the Big Pig and move at twice the speed of light through the warp engine channel. With the construction speed of the celestial computer I currently have, it will take about 300 years to do it. Chen Hao smiled bitterly. Then you are not good enough, you still need to work hard. Yinglong was startled, and he nodded slightly. Yes. Come on, do more research. Chen Hao smiled. Yinglong nodded. Yes. Chen Hao stood up. I haven't been back for a long time. I'm going out for a walk. You can continue to do your own things. You don't have to accompany me. As he said, Chen Hao walked out of the palace. Yinglong and the other two looked at Chen Hao's back and watched him leave. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 407. After Chen Hao left the palace, the beast masters surrounded him one by one as soon as they saw Chen Hao. Their faces are full of happiness and joy. For Chen Hao, it took less than a day for him to leave the God Realm star. But for the beast masters, it was a full 18 years. Chen Hao also knew what these little guys were thinking, so he agreed and touched their heads with a smile. Other side. In the Grey Elf Forest, in front of the statue of the god of creation. A blonde girl sat on a branch, looking at the statue in front of her. Under the bright moonlight, this white jade statue looks particularly holy. The blonde girl looked at the statue. She crossed her arms and leaned against the tree trunk, squinting her face as she stared at the statue. Xiaoyu. Suddenly, a voice came. The blonde looked away and looked at the source of the sound. I saw the little skeleton standing on a branch nearby, with a pair of empty pupils glowing with red light, and the red light was staring at Xiaoyu. You smiled, Uncle Skeleton. I have said it many times, I have grown up, don't call me Xiaoyu, call me you. When the little skull heard this, he slowly sat on the branch and said, you used to like to run out. Why have you been staying at home during this time and not going out? Are you worried? The little skull said, actually, I believe that there is nothing important except life and death in this world. If you have any goals, there is no need to rush, just pursue them slowly. After all, you now have an endless lifespan. When you heard this, she withdrew her gaze and then looked at the statue in front of her. Uncle Skeleton, when will he come back? The little skeleton was startled. He raised his face and looked at the statue. You said, Master. Yeah, you nodded. The little skeleton sat on a branch, folded his hands on his chest, and said, I don't know the whereabouts of the Master. The Master is the Master of all things, the Master of heaven and earth, and the most supreme existence in the world. He comes and goes, he is. Others have no right to restrict or no personal freedom. The little skeleton looked at you. Why are you suddenly interested in the Master? The red light glowing in its dark and empty eyes was particularly bright in this late night. You said, now, I have been to Vaf Star, Ocean Star, Big Bear Star, Gem Star, Endless Star, everywhere. During this period of travel, I have met many strong people. I used to think that since I was invincible on Vaf Planet, I would be invincible in the world. As a result, when I went to other planets, I realized how insignificant I am. But these powerful men are no longer a match for Uncle Skeleton and Uncle Sword Demon, let alone the main gods of the God Realm. You seem to be lost in thought. When I was fighting the golden mantis on the endless star, I was almost killed. As soon as Sister Huofeng appeared, the golden mantis was easily reduced to ashes. When I was training on the gem star, I encountered the pursuit of those black gemstone people, and when I was desperate, as soon as little Shadow Sister appeared, all those black gemstone people died. The first time I saw the two of them in the God realm, they were very amiable, especially Sister Huofeng. She was talking and laughing, just like a big sister. I was still thinking that if I had the opportunity to show off my sword skills, I would definitely shock their jaws. I didn't expect them to be so strong. I think among the people I know, only Uncle Skeleton and Uncle Sword Demon are capable of fighting with them. When the little skull heard this, he looked away and looked ahead, muttering in a low voice, "Xiao Ying has been following the master. With the help of the master, her strength is estimated to be inferior to the next few streets. If I fight with them below, I guess he will be hung up." "Uncle Skeleton." Suddenly a voice came. The little skeleton came to his senses and saw you looking at him. "You said, what did you just say?" The voice was a bit soft, I didn't hear it clearly. The little skull laughed, "It's nothing, I just feel that the sun is a little bright tonight, it's nothing." "Sun," you was slightly startled. She raised her face and looked at the moon above. "Ahem." The little skeleton coughed, and then said, "Then what?" "Then why are you so concerned about the master?" "You looked away, because I have seen the strength of Sister Huofeng and Sister Xiaoying. I was thinking that Sister Huofeng and Sister Xiaoying both call Chen Hao their master, so how powerful Chen Hao is. 18 years ago, I met him." She raised her face and looked at the statue in front of her. "I was still young at that time. I didn't feel any fluctuations in magic energy or fighting spirit from him at that time. To me, he is just an ordinary person. He was also smiling at that time, so kind, and made people feel so ordinary. At that time, I thought, this man doesn't look like a god of creation at all. It felt like others didn't understand him and praised him too much at the time. I even felt that his strength was not as good as Uncle Skeleton. It's still you, Uncle Sword Demon." Hearing this, the little skull raised his hand, revealing the fingers made of bones. He lowered his head slightly subconsciously, put his hand on his face, and thought to himself, "Fortunately, I didn't go to see the master with her at that time. The choice is right." Later, as time went by, I slowly grew up, and as I saw the strength of Sister Huofeng and Sister Xiaoying, as my knowledge broadened, I realized how great the God of creation is. You looked at the statue in front of her, that peaceful, kind, amiable boy who looked like an ordinary person was actually such a great, powerful, and supreme being. The contrast of memories made me feel like I was in a dream when I saw him at that time. It was incredible. In the past few years, I often think of the scenes of that day in my dreams. That feeling is incredible. The God of creation, the Lord of all things. I actually called his name in person, and he smiled and agreed. "Speaking of this, you smiled, Lord Creator, what an interesting person. Now, I am eager to see him again, talk to him, and apologize to him for my rudeness when I was a child." "So that's it," the little skeleton suddenly realized, and he looked at the statue in front of him. "However, the master has been playing outside the 9 heavens now, and he has been away from the God realm for at least 2 years. Recently, I heard that he has been away for a long time and has not returned. I don't know when the master will return to the God realm next time." You took a deep breath, retracted his sight, and jumped off the tree trunk. Watching you land, the little skeleton said, "Where to go?" You raised his face and looked at the little skeleton. "Go to the God realm, find Sister Huofeng to play. Sister Huofeng and Sister Shataya are studying how to make the sun recently. I plan to go over and take a look." The little skeleton hummed, "Go early and come back early." Okay, Yu's figure moved, and disappeared on the spot with a gust of wind. Seeing this, the little skeleton retracted his sight and looked at the statue in front of him. Calling the master by his real name in front of the master, how bold! I dare not even think about it. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 408. Located in the God realm. Chen Hao sat on a vine chair, surrounded by groups of beast masters, all sitting on the carpeted floor. Pairs of eyes stared at Chen Hao sitting on the vine chair. Chen Hao sat on the vine chair, asking these beast masters what they had done in the God realm in the 18 years since he left. The beast masters stood up one by one and reported to Chen Hao. In the past 18 years, these little guys have been studying and understanding, and Chen Hao let the information processor give them the truth. The information processor gave them too much knowledge, which was directly implanted in their brains and they could read it. But it is extremely difficult to understand and use this knowledge, and this process takes a lot of time. So research is needed. As he asked, Chen Hao was surprised that each of these little guys now has his own research project. Like Huo Feng and Chataya, the two destroyers, they specialize in nuclear fusion and nuclear fission. Yinglong is very interested in the technology of space, and space is its research project. Xiaoying is studying something called dark energy. The other beast masters also have their own research. Master, suddenly, a voice came. Hearing this voice, Chen Hao looked at the source of the voice. I saw a little guy standing in front of Chen Hao. Looking at this little guy, Chen Hao's eyes have a hint of doubt. This little girl has long hair made of ice crystals, and under the long hair is a baby face. She is thin and petite, and is estimated to be only about 1 meter tall. A little familiar. Chen Hao's heart moved. Shui Yi. Shui Yi's sapphire-like eyes lit up slightly, and a smile appeared on her little face. Yeah. Chen Hao smiled. Do you remember that you didn't look like this before? Why do you look like this now? Before, after Shui Yi changed from a 0-degree elf to an angel, she has always maintained the adult form of an angel. Why is she back to this now? Shui Yi heard this and said with a smile, I still like a smaller body. Said this, Shui Yi paused. She looked at Chen Hao. Master, can you hug Shui Yi? Hearing this, Chen Hao blinked. He smiled helplessly. You girl. As he said this, he bent down, stretched out his hand and picked up Shui Yi. Chen Hao put Shui Yi in his arms and let her sit on his lap. Shui Yi sat obediently. She raised her little face and looked at Chen Hao. The baby face was full of joy and happiness, with a smile on her face. Chen Hao smiled. This girl probably doesn't like the adult body, but actually misses the time when she can hug her master. Master, suddenly, a voice came. Chen Hao looked at the source of the voice. I saw Erlang also came over, his face full of excitement, the wolf tail behind him swaying, ran over, lay on the ground, looked up, looked at Chen Hao, and said excitedly, Master, I want a hug too. Chen Hao looked at Erlang sticking out his tongue, looking excited. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth twitched. Chen Hao adjusted his mood, and he forced a smile. Next time, next time. Ah, next time, Erlang's tail slowly shrugged. Chen Hao smiled. Yes, next time, go back and sit down first. Oh. Erlang stood up, lowered his head, and walked away with a look of disappointment. This brat. Chen Hao retracted his gaze and looked at Shui Yi beside him, only to see Shui Yi blinking his big eyes at Chen Hao. Looking like a good child. Chen Hao smiled and said, for such a long time, your brothers and sisters are now studying the truth and developing some new things. What about you, little guy? Are you studying the device? Shui Yi smiled and said, I am studying Absolute Zero with Shui Er, Shui San, and others. Absolute Zero, Chen Hao thought for a while. The Absolute Zero you are talking about refers to the magic you have when you are in the realm of 0-degree elves? Shui Yi listened and shook her head. No, the absolute zero magic we have when we are 0-degree elves is just a name. The cold air released by the absolute zero magic can enter the material body and freeze the material directly. But that is not absolute zero. Shui Yi smiled. The absolute zero that Shui Yi wants to study is the real zero. Chen Hao understood. The absolute zero that Shui Yi wants to study should be 0K if calculated according to the temperature unit used by Chen Hao on Earth before. It is minus 273.15 degrees Celsius. That is a temperature that can never be reached in theory but in reality. However, this girl really likes things related to cold, and even started researching this. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Did the research succeed?" Shui Yi shook his head. "No, we have made many instruments that can make the temperature limit absolute zero, but we can't reach absolute zero. According to the theory, particles vibrate and rotate in matter, and kinetic energy generates heat energy. Only when the particles stop moving can absolute zero be achieved. But it's so difficult, it's impossible," Shui Yi said with regret. Shui Yi raised his face and looked at Chen Hao with his icy eyes. "Master, can you do it?" Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. "These are research, and you have to rely on yourself to study, so that you can grow." Shui Yi's eyes lit up slightly, and she smiled. "Well, Shui Yi will work hard." Chen Hao smiled. "It's so lively here tonight." Suddenly, a voice came. Hearing this voice, Chen Hao raised his head and looked at the source of the voice. In front of him, a beautiful figure was flapping a pair of white wings and flying in the air. This is a girl with blonde hair and a pair of golden eyes. She stared at Chen Hao with a glimmer in her eyes and a smile on her face. She flapped her wings and flew towards the side. The woman landed in front of Chen Hao. When Chen Hao saw the girl, he immediately felt a little familiar. Suddenly, Chen Hao remembered that there seemed to be a little girl with blonde hair before, and the temperament exuded by the girl in front of him was the same. "You," Chen Hao said subconsciously. When you heard this, she smiled immediately. She folded her wings, looked at Chen Hao, and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that the god of creation could still remember me. You, I feel honored." Unexpectedly, it was really her. Chen Hao smiled. "I remember that when I met you last time, you were still a little girl. I didn't expect that you have grown up so big in the blink of an eye." As he said, Chen Hao hugged Shui Yi and put Shui Yi down. Shui Yi looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Go and play." Shui Yi smiled. "Yeah." Chen Hao's eyes fell on you. Although the blonde girl is no longer the blonde girl before, Chen Hao can still feel her confidence and pride from her confident and proud smile. This kind of confidence and pride has become her unique character and temperament. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 409. That's right, you stood in front of Chen Hao. She raised her hand and put it in front of her chest. Then she bowed slightly and saluted Chen Hao. "You, pay homage to Master Chuang Shen." Yu's move made Chen Hao slightly startled. This is rare. Chen Hao remembered that the last time she saw him, this girl was very carefree and fearless. Why did she learn to salute when she saw him this time? Chen Hao raised his hand, touched his chin, and looked at Yu. "I remember that the last time you saw me, you were not like this." When Yu heard this, she raised her face and looked at Chen Hao with a smile on her face. "Last time, I was still young and didn't understand the greatness of Lord Chuang Shen, so I offended Lord Chuang Shen. 18 years later, I'm already looking for an opportunity to see Master Chuang Shen again and apologize for what I did before." Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. At the same time, Chen Hao also felt a little emotional. Yu is still confident and proud, but, She has grown up. During these 18 years, she has grown and matured through experience. This maturity made her realize how inappropriate it was for her to do those things as a child. She knew how to use honorifics towards Chen Hao. Like most people, she called Chen Hao Master Chuang Shen and also saluted Chen Hao. Even apologized. After Chen Hao sighed in his heart, he wore the same smile as always. There is no need to apologize for that matter. You didn't make a mistake at that time. If you didn't make a mistake, you don't need to apologize. You looked at Chen Hao, she pursed her lower lip, and looked at Chen Hao. There is something I have always wanted to ask you. Huh? Chen Hao had doubts in his eyes. He looked at you, touched his chin, and said, I remember that you were trained by Sword Demon and Little Skeleton. If you have a question, can't they give you an answer? You nodded slightly. Neither Uncle Sword Demon nor Uncle Skeleton can give me an answer. My question is also their question. Oh, Chen Hao smiled, really? I remember that with the strength of the Sword Demon and the Little Skeleton, they can basically walk sideways in the VAF star. Can there be problems with this kind of strength? This actually makes me a little interested. Yeah, what's the problem? You looked at Chen Hao. I want to know what I should do next. Ah, Chen Hao was stunned. What's the problem? You stared at Chen Hao, her golden eyes filled with confusion. When I was young, there were wars and killings everywhere. Uncle Sword Demon and Uncle Skeleton protected me and the Grey Elf clan, and what they showed, the pursuit of strength and protecting the weak, later became my pursuit. But now, I find that my strength has no place to use. You said, Wolf Continent has been unified and the war is over. Uncle Yinglong, the lords of the 7 regions established and under the rule of more than 3,000 laws and regulations, the entire Yinglong Empire is currently leaning toward peace. Even if something happens, it will be punished by the laws and regulations of the Yinglong Empire. The weak don't need us to protect them. She looked at Chen Hao. I'm very confused. Uncle Sword Demon and Uncle Skeleton also understand very well. We don't know what we should do next. Hearing this, Chen Hao understood. When you was a child, she hung out with sword demons and skeletons. When she arrived in the divine realm, she followed the beast masters of the divine realm. She had completely lost her identity as an ordinary person. Now you has great strength. For her, ordinary people's goals are no longer her goals. To put it in the simplest terms, you cannot find his life goal. This is a problem. Chen Hao thought for a moment, then looked at you. Your question is actually very simple. The weak people of WAF Star do not need you to protect them, but outside of WAF Star, there are other civilizations and other weak people. Other weak people who need you to protect. You was slightly startled and looked at Chen Hao. Are you talking about Ocean Star and Endless Star? Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. The universe is very big. In this vast and endless universe, there are countless civilizations. These civilizations are not just the Ocean Star and the Endless Star. As he spoke, Chen Hao looked at the starry sky above. When you look up, in the starry sky you can see, every star glowing with starlight is a star, and every star may be surrounded by planets. It is possible for life to be born on every planet, and it is possible for life to have civilization. You raised her face and looked at the starry sky above, her eyes glowing. Stars, planets, life, civilization. She withdrew her gaze and looked at Chen Hao. What are those? Forward. Chen Hao smiled. You can ask your Uncle Skeleton and Uncle Sword Demon about these questions. They know. You frowned slightly, thought for a moment, and nodded slightly. Okay. She adjusted her mood, looked at Chen Hao, and smiled. Although I don't understand it well, I will study hard to understand it. Thank you, Master Chuang Shen, for clarifying my doubts. I'll leave first. Chen Hao smiled. Go ahead. You nodded slightly and then left. Chen Hao looked at you's blonde hair and the pair of holy white wings behind you. Chen Hao remembered that you was a human and had no wings. I guess it was someone from Huofeng and the others who helped you install it, right? Yes, having wings is also convenient for flying. With the technology that the Beast Masters currently understand, life can be created, and wings are naturally easy to create. Chen Hao stood up, looked at the beasts, and said with a smile, "Okay, let's go, I have to go back and rest." "Master, this time, will you stay in the God realm for a few more days?" a voice came from the side. It was Shui Yi who spoke. Shui Yi looked at Chen Hao with his big blue eyes, and his eyes were full of reluctance. Chen Hao's eyebrows stretched, and he smiled and said, "Of course." Chen Hao was not in a hurry to leave. The little diamond needed to devour the planets in this planetary system. These planets were gas giants, and they were completely different in mass from the last planetary system. It obviously took some time for the little diamond to devour. After all, he had been away for 18 years, so it was just right to take advantage of this time to accompany these little guys. Chen Hao stayed in the God Realm Star for 2 days. The third day, morning. Chen Hao was lying on a recliner made of vines, closing his eyes and enjoying the baptism of sunlight. The sunlight hanging in the blue sky now is not the light emitted by the white dwarf, but the light created by the planetary environment transformation ring designed by Dazu and Yinglong combined with the artificial sun designed by Huofeng and Shataya. In the God realm, looking up, you can see the blue sky and white clouds, and a round of sunlight in the blue sky and white clouds. After staying in the dark universe, it feels good to enjoy the sun bath now. "Master," a voice came. Chen Hao opened his eyes and looked at the source of the voice, only to see Little Diamond standing beside him. Looking at this little guy, Chen Hao smiled, "Did you get it done?" But Little Diamond looked bitter, and she said, "Failed." Chen Hao's smile froze. "Failed. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world." Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 410. How could it fail? She asked Diamond to devour the 5 planets in this planetary system. All she had to do was devour them. Devouring planets and obtaining matter, how could it fail? Chen Hao stood up slightly, sat up, and looked at Little Diamond. "What's going on?" Little Diamond made a grimace. "Of those 5 planets, 2 are more massive than me, but the other 3 planets are all more massive than me. I can't swallow them." "So that's it?" Chen Hao's slightly wrinkled eyebrows relaxed, and there was a smile on his face again. "It's just a small matter, why are you looking so sad again?" Chen Hao looked at Little Diamond's grimace. He thought something big had happened, but now he heard that it was just a small matter. Little Diamond's naturally splayed eyebrows were slightly frowned, looking sad. She grimaced, "I don't know how to swallow the other 3 planets. It took the master so long and across a long distance to find these planets. If I can't even swallow these planets, then the master will be disappointed. I feel so useless," Little Diamond said with a bitter face. No wonder the little guy had a grimace when he arrived. It turned out that she cared about this. Chen Hao smiled. With a thought in his mind, a 3D projection model of the planetary system appeared in front of him. This planetary system model is exactly the planet model where Chen Hao is currently. In the middle of the planet is the white dwarf star. Outside the white dwarf star, 3 gas giant planets are orbiting the white dwarf star. This planet model perfectly reproduces the appearance of the 3 gas giant planets. Chen Hao stretched out his hand, placed it on the 3 gas giant planet models, and spread his fingers. 3 gas giant planets are magnified. In this way, Chen Hao can carefully see the appearance of these 3 gas giant planets and their information data. The appearance of these 3 gas giant planets is very similar to Jupiter and Saturn in the solar system, and their appearance is yellow-orange. The lowest mass is 0.8 times the mass of Jupiter, and the highest mass is 1 Jupiter mass. "What is the current mass of the small diamond?" Chen Hao asked in his mind. A message about Little Diamond appeared in front of him. The current mass of the small diamond planet is 0.7 times the mass of Jupiter. No wonder, the quality of these three guys is at least higher than that of small diamonds. Through these planetary colors, Chen Hao also discovered an interesting thing. These gas giant planets are very far away from their stars. At such a long distance, the temperature is low. If the gas giant planet is not high in mass, most of the gas will become solid due to the low temperature. Eventually, the color will become like ice giants like Uranus and Neptune appear blue. If the mass is high, the gas giant planet itself can generate heat, and there is too much gas in the periphery. Even at low temperatures, it will be difficult to freeze them, and the overall body will appear yellow like Jupiter or Saturn. This is quite interesting. Now the problem is back, the quality of the small diamond is not high enough now, and it can't swallow these three guys. I have to mention the quality of the small diamonds. What to do? Chen Hao frowned slightly. Give up swallowing these three gas giant planets? This is not possible. It took Chen Hao such a long time to come to this planetary system. It would be too hurt to give up. Suddenly, Chen Hao had a flash of inspiration. He opened the Universal Book, flipped through it, and took out a card from the Universal Book. Energy Crystal Block Gas Giant Planet Energy Crystal Block. This card is the energy crystal block of Huangfeng Star. The mass contained in this card is 1 Jupiter mass. Before, Chen Hao was still thinking about who to use this card for, but now it's just right. Cultivate a beast first, and when it grows strong enough, the star-catching ring and information processor will evolve. After the evolution, it will be faster to cultivate other beasts. Transform. The card turned into a golden energy crystal, suspended in Chen Hao's palm. Chen Hao handed the energy crystal block to the small diamond beside him. When Little Diamond looked at it, there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. Master, is this? Chen Hao smiled. Energy. After you eat it, you can devour the other 3 planets in this planetary system at will. Little Diamond's eyes lit up slightly, and she nodded slightly, yes. She reached out her hand and took it. She looked at the golden crystal in front of her and put it into her mouth. She closed her eyes and opened her mouth to eat. When the golden crystal block was swallowed by Little Diamond's whole body lit up with golden light. The light lit up from her body, and then her entire body was covered in golden light. The golden light slowly dissipated, and the figure of Little Diamond reappeared in front of Chen Hao. Little Diamond's posture didn't seem to change much. Little Diamond slowly opened her eyes, revealing her diamond-like eyes. There was a hint of surprise on her little face. She looked at her body, then looked at Chen Hao. Master, I feel that I have become so strong now. Chen Hao smiled. Very good, go ahead and continue tossing those planets and try to swallow them all as soon as possible. Little Diamond nodded. Okay. As soon as the words fell, Little Diamond's figure disappeared from the spot. This is not teleportation, but the effect of the warp engine of the celestial computer diamond developed by Xiaobai and Dazug. It looks similar to teleportation. Chen Hao touched his chin. Xiaobai had said before that the warp channel constructed by the computing power they have developed can only be used to transport low-mass individuals. Even with the current mass of the Big Pig, it would take hundreds of years to build a warp channel that allows the Big Pig to move at the speed of light. But the Little Diamond seems to be able to move directly. In other words, is the Little Diamond now just a simple human-shaped mass? In other words, if a large mass object is turned into a small mass, and then the current warp channel is used, it can also move at a speed similar to the speed of light. But the question is, what is the principle of the mass transformation of the Little Diamond? Chen Hao couldn't figure it out. Forget it, I'm too lazy to think about it, Chen Hao said. Information processor, project the current situation of the Little Diamond, I want to see it. A 3D stereoscopic image appeared in front of Chen Hao. In this 3D stereoscopic image, the appearance of the little diamond can be seen. The little diamond is staying in the universe, and in front of her is a gas giant planet. The appearance of this gas giant planet is similar to Saturn in the solar system, and its body is very huge. The body of the little diamond glowed with golden light, and the light turned into a light ball, and then quickly grew larger. In the blink of an eye, a yellow gas giant planet appeared in the universe. At this moment, the volume of the little diamond star was extremely huge, with a mass of 1.7 Jupiter masses. Compared to this, the mass is much higher.